Are on. Hi, Max. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. How's it going?
Yeah, good. Very good. Welcome, everyone. Very excited to host this new series of our interview, Melting Spot interview series. We like to interview some great community builders and community enthusiasts, and we have one of them right now on the stage. Hi, Max from Finimize.
Hey, hey everyone.
So Finimize is one of the largest finance communities, and Max is going to tell us more about Finimize in a second. But just to introduce the topic, we like to set melting spot that today's communities are tomorrow's businesses. Well, with Finimize, you're yesterday's community, and you started off as a business in community, so somewhat different. But let's hear more about what you do at Finimize and what took you to community building, Max.
Yeah, sure thing. So, Finimize is a platform that empowers modern investors. So, we believe the world would be a better place if you can think for yourself, make your own choices with your investments, and in life too. But what we do is we make sure that if you're investing, you have all the information you need, but it's in bite-sized format that we can all understand and actually make use of. So Finimize started out as a daily newsletter. It was what's going on in the world of finance without any jargon in under 3 minutes. That really took off, really captured people's interest. This was probably nearly 5 years ago, so we were an early adopter to the newsletter format. Now they're everywhere, and that's got just over 1 million subscribers now. So it scaled really nicely. What I was lucky to have is a CEO that believed in community from day one. He met me while I was working in a bank, trying to launch or solve a similar problem of empowering more people to invest and engaging more people with investing. He kindly told me that what I was working on probably wouldn't work, and that I should come and join Finimize and figure out community. Like, what does that mean for us as a business? I had no background in community. I had to get up to speed pretty quickly. But the exciting thing was with this newsletter audience that they were building at the time, we had an audience. There was a large group of people that were loving our content. They were passionate about what we were doing and believed in the same mission of empowering people to take control of their finances and investment. So that was kind of the background how I joined, and I guess where we are today, if I fast forward quickly, is that Finimize has this million-person newsletter, but we've built out an entire platform around our community. So we have a mobile app that's a premium subscription that doesn't just give you what's going on in the news. It also helps educate and inform you about how to invest. It can help you discover ideas. We have a private community where you can discuss with other members. There are member-organized events taking place every day of the year. So you can attend different events and hear from different experts. So we built this ecosystem around becoming a smarter investor. But the thing that we're very proud of is even back then, everything we've done in our business has been community-led, from the content we write to the product we build, to the events that we run, all organized and all participated by our passionate audience, which is hard to do in finance.
Yeah. Well, we're straight into the topic because you mentioned an audience of 1 million subscribers to your newsletter. You have about 170,000 premium subscribers. They actually pay for extra service. But what we like to say at Melting Spot is that for the last 10 years, we've spent time building audiences. And now everyone is like, okay, an audience is not good enough. I need to actually turn it into a community. And that's what you did, and way before community started to be cool. So kudos to that. But let's talk more about how you turn this audience into a proper community. You mentioned content and events and all the rest of it. Can you tell us a bit more about that? And then we're going to talk about the return of those investments.
Yeah, fantastic. So let me sort of cast my mind back to the first instance of going from audience to community. I think what happened was our CEO sent an email basically saying, "Hey, I'm going to be in the pub on Friday. If you're reading this and you want to come, just turn up." And And people did. It was crazy. People actually turned up. Maybe there was like 30 people there, but it was like
And he sent
it was,
that email to a million people.
no. This would have been, maybe the email was like 50,000 people at that point.
Shouting beers at millions of people can be a bit expensive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If it's a million, you got to pay for your own drink. And yeah, people turned up. And there's this amazing, I think I speak to a lot of community builders that go through this. There's something amazing about actually meeting the people on the other side of your product, especially in a large group, and seeing them interact with each other. And we just carried on doing that. So that started building momentum. And every month we would meet up. There'd be, 100, 200, 300 people start meeting up in London at these Finimize events. And we were getting messages, because we're a global audience, like a really distributed global audience. So I get messages from, I think the first one came from Boston, saying, "Hey, I want to attend a Finimize meetup. Like, when are you coming to Boston?" And like I said, it was a small team. I didn't have a background in community, but it was this interesting point of like, well, if you want to run it, here's how we organize this one. It's not that complex. There hasn't been much thought into it. You run it, and we'll let people in Boston that read Finimize know that you're going to run it. And we kind of built up this playbook. We had the same thing happen in India, then in South Africa, then in Australia. And before, I think within a year, we had 35 countries running these monthly Finimize events, more than 10,000 people turning up in person to go to them.
Amazing.
And my job was, and it was me and Michelle, who's on my team, our job was really focused on okay, how do you work on these playbooks that can scale, and how do you build out an ambassador program where they can really make those experiences high quality? Because there's one thing turning up and just meeting a few people that also read Finimize. There's another thing turning up and coming away with a really valuable experience where you want to go again and then you want to participate. So that was kind of the genesis of how community came about at Finimize.
Cool.
And then I guess the next chapter was sort of just taking exactly that same concept and finding other moments where we could apply the same community thinking.
That's amazing. We all know about user-generated content, but you created user-generated events. That's unheard of. Well, actually, I think Airbnb also started running events that were hosted by local hosts.
Yes.
So that's.
Well, I was going to say we really weren't the innovators in this, and I think if we have other community builders or founders listening, I think the benefit I had was not having a community background, and I really went and studied the greats. I know you were saying before that you had Douglas Atkin on your previous show. He's one of the greats. I studied all of his work and their work, and his book is fantastic. Duolingo had also scaled far faster than we had, and really sort of written this playbook on scaling ambassador events. I know that So Far Sounds is another company that had scaled this sort of ambassador event program. But there's, number one piece of advice is go and find the people that have really become experts in this and start learning from them. Because community is so vast that there'll be someone that has nailed that kind of vertical in community. So we weren't the first, and there are people who had learned and done a lot of the work before us.
Cool. So let's now dive into our topic, which is it's fine to invest in a community, and I think we're all believers in community, but it's only worth it if you get returns from it, and you only get returns if you can measure them. So we're going to talk about KPIs, indicators, measurement of a success of a community, and there's no better framework to I think to go about answering those questions than the David Spinks Spaces framework, measuring the value of community. So let's go down to those various business values associated with community and see how you measure them. The value number one is customer support. S for support. Do you actually use your community for support? I mean, your product is pretty, I guess, easy to use, but do you still use community as a support tool?
I think we would see support through a different lens. But we have a customer success team internally, we don't use a community model to sort of answer different queries and sort of bugs with the app and that kind of thing. Where we do use support is for our members to support each other, almost like cheerleaders on this journey of becoming smarter. Because if you think of, one of the challenges around how do you empower more people in the world to invest their money, like the amazing thing about our events, you'd turn up and it wouldn't be people wearing suits with gray hair talking in finance terms. Like, it's someone who actually looked like me, and they were talking about the same problems that I had as well, that I didn't understand. And we would then start motivating each other to continue on this journey. So I think our version of support would be motivating each other.
Cool.
But we don't do, I guess what you would measure there would be like ticket deflection.
Yeah, exactly.
How many answers, which I guess would be more on like a SaaS model.
Yeah. And we had the former head of community at HP on the show a few months ago, and he said that the moment they launched their support community, they reduced calls by like 90%. It was crazy.
Yeah, I can believe it.
It's certainly something that's worth considering when you have a lot of support to address. But the second value is around like product, P for product. So how do you use your community to actually design your products, improve your product at Finimize?
Yeah, but so I think P is a pretty big one for us here at Finimize. And, just taking a step back from, if you're designing a community strategy that you want to drive ROI either today or in the future, you can't do everything. So it's about picking your battles. And I think the Spaces framework is a great way of doing it, or just mapping your business. You map your business and the revenue streams, the cost bases, and you can then figure out where community will have the biggest impact and start estimating how you can build communities to drive those impacts. Product is one of those for us that has had a big impact, because we think about that in two ways. So the first is, we will make sure that we're giving product ideas to product on an ongoing basis. We may track them, but I think it's more about what gets pushed into live and creates value. But we're constantly getting ideas from our community groups and tracking that, the number of ideas submitted, and then how many make it live. But what we give our product teams is the space to observe how users discuss and use our product organically, which is very different to the typical, I guess, user research function that you would have with a product team. Because as soon as you're in the room, or as soon as you're asking the questions, there's some inherent biases that exist. If you can create spaces where you just observe how people use, almost like an aquarium, that's where you get real honesty and real genuine and authentic things that you can work on and get feedback. So around the product, there's ideas, there's this way to observe through beta groups and get real unbiased and genuine feedback. We'll kind of track the number of ideas that come out of that into production. But there's also like community as a product itself, which I think is probably the biggest business impact our community has on the company, because we're a content business technically at the end of the day. We're a subscription model, and people pay for our content, and people pay to get access to our membership. Now, a subscription business is driven by two things: how many people you acquire and how many of those people stick around the following year or the following month. So how many people retain?
Yeah.
By creating a community product, you will find that you will require more people to that subscription because it's just more value that you're offering. But the real driver for us has been retention. So by launching community as a product and launching groups as a perk of having a Finimize subscription that's only accessible to our Finimize premium members, we see that the retention of those subscriptions is 2 times better. So they're twice as likely to renew their annual subscription if they've engaged in the community. Now, if you have that and you can scale that, that is a huge differentiating factor
Yeah,
So people that engage with
that's a
community,
big number. A
yeah,
big number.
it's a very big number. And we were quite intentional with that. We had this thesis going in that people will come for the content, but they'll stay from the community. So we were very strict on tracking week 1 retention and end of subscription annual retention. So week 1 cancellation rates and then 12-month retention rates. And we would measure those between community engaged and non-community engaged members. The week 1 allows us to track and adapt on a weekly basis. The difficulty with retention is often the things that will make someone end their subscription in month 12 may have happened 6 months ago. It's very difficult to do something about. However, if someone cancels their subscription in the first week, that gives you a real targeted focus to adapt your onboarding and adapt what they see in that first week on an ongoing basis. And that's really helped us iterate that number up. So retention has been a huge piece of the Finimize community driving revenue. And it, like I said, it was an intentional hypothesis that we started with there.
Cool. I like the come for the content or the product and stay for the community. It's pretty powerful, and I think well, most people underestimate the power of a community in the long run within a customer base. But I like how you summarized it. It's awesome. Speaking of I think customer retention, customer acquisition, is the next value in the Spaces framework, and it's obviously a really big one. Acquisition. We know, like, we've had a number of guests on the show telling us about how easier it was to actually sign close a prospect when they were part of a community versus normal inbound marketing strategies. So in fact, we had the founder of CFO Connect, which is a large community of CFOs powered and created by Spendesk, and they told us that someone who was part of the community was 3 times more likely to actually become a customer than someone who wasn't part of the community. So how do you measure that at Finimize, and do you observe the same thing?
Yeah, exactly. Acquisition. We've found, so, we will sell essentially media to other partners. So when they're out pitching, community is so powerful just in that pitch process itself. Because if you imagine this, again, this concept of observing our members, like, I see it as my job to understand our current and future customers better than anyone else on this planet. And we have tens of thousands of conversations happening on a daily basis. So when our sales team go into those pitches, I'm trying to make sure they're armed with all of this insight that we know the other people pitching do not have. When you come to us and you say, okay, we're building a product for retail investors, our community will tell us exactly what they think of that product. We already know exactly what they think of that product, their competitors. We know how to communicate to that audience. So there you'll see pitch win rate improve just from being community informed. But again, to kind of clarify what you're saying around just with this on the sales piece, we find that the individual deal size from community referrals is 1.5 times higher. We found that last year, more than 20% of our sales came from community referrals. And even when it comes to that pitch win process and improve, the actual time to onboard a new B2B client is about a third faster. So all of these metrics start building up, and that's sales is normally a very separate team to community. And that's just one area where I think community has got such a fantastic way of plugging into. We do try and do that across the rest of the business. So I've already spoken about product, but that deep insight will also feed into ads that we're running or the content that we're writing. Because it just makes sense that the content that we're trying to give to our audience, like our audience, if they're unhappy, will unsubscribe. If happy, they'll continue to subscribe. So it's a no-brainer that we want to serve them content that they want to see and find valuable. So building again in those feedback loops into the content team, the same with ads. The ads that will convert for your business are gonna be things that are top of mind and trending, answer the key questions that come from a place that resonates with your existing members. So we don't just try and do that with sales, we try and do that across the business.
Cool. Great. Awesome. The next value is C for content, and obviously you are a content business. And when we had a prep talk a few days ago, you talked about Finimize as some service between TikTok and the FT, and I was like, okay, there's some space in between.
Yeah, there
So
is.
you're and obviously content is king, but you can't you need to source content from your users, and you do that really well. So tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so it's a great point. I've never heard it put so bluntly that we're somewhere between TikTok and the FT, but it makes sense, right? Like for modern investors, when you're looking for information, you either have all of this free stuff that comes through Google and social, like TikTok and Twitter and Instagram, that's noisy and can be overwhelming, or you've got all of this high quality stuff that is expensive, complex, a bit boring, not very accessible. There isn't much in the middle. So, all of our content is written by our analysts who are ex-investment bankers, Goldman Sachs, Fidelity, Charles Schwab. We package it up nicely, but the quality's there, and we'll package it up in a way that is, much more akin to a social channel. So it's all bite size. Now, what that means is I've kind of already touched on, we'll track the amount of content pieces that were informed by the community. So we'll make sure our analysts are informed, and we meet weekly to suggest ideas and talk about what's trending in the community. And then those content pieces that are community informed, we'll track and see how they perform versus non-community informed. We'll also look to generate content from our community. Now, Finimize has got a bit of a unique position in the fact that we are bite-sized. Like, we don't want to take up a lot of our customers' day. You'll listen to Finimize on your morning commute or during lunch or while you're at the gym. So we can't just increase the volume of content, because then that just starts to create noise. So what we do is we work with our community to create content, but we also pair those submissions with an analyst. And an analyst will edit those pieces of content. But what that means is in a day, an analyst might be able to put out 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of content because the community have helped draft and write and script these ideas, rather than a full day that it would take them to come up with the idea, draft that idea, edit that idea, and so on. But I think it's a powerful way for people to start, again, thinking strategically about your business. We're a content business. So intentionally, we think, okay, how do we create more content? Well, our content has to be high quality. Well, how do we work with our community in order to create content that our community want to see and is at the same level of quality that our analysts put out? So we're always looking for these feedback loops.
Cool. I like the fact that your community helps, like, not only source content ideas, but also actually helps produce that content, with obviously a process in place to sort of revise and approve any content generated by your community. But it's brilliant. Well done.
Well, people ask me a lot about that. I think one thing that we've done very well is to make it really simple and consistent why people join Finimize, why people join and participate in the community. And that's that we're here to become smarter investors. You are participating in our community to help each other become smarter investors. And a big part of becoming a smarter investor is like that practice, daily practice of writing out your ideas, reviewing that, testing that against other people's. So it all kind of bakes in, and it sort of has an inherent motivator for people to participate in the community that drives business value.
Cool. Great. Thanks. And the next business value that we like to map ROI against is engagement. And the good thing about that one is that we're not talking only engagement within the community. We're also talking about engagement within the company. And tell us how having a great community at Finimize actually helped also drive engagement within the Finimize people.
Yeah, so I guess in my last rant, we covered a bit on, like, it makes sense on engagement, right? Like the more community are creating interesting content, having these conversations is going to drive engagement with our product. But I love this piece that you're bringing up around like internal engagement, and bringing it back to this conversation of ROI, like a conversation that isn't had enough in the community industry. When you're running a business, probably the biggest determinant of your success is whether you can attract great talent to come and work for you. It's the number one hardest thing to do, and the number one lever that you have to pull. Can I attract amazing, inspiring, talented people to come and work for my organization? Now, the number one thing that talented and top tier people want to work at a firm like ours that I've found, but the number one thing that they look for in their job is a mission-driven company, something that is having an impact on the world. And that has to be authentic. There is no better way to tell your story as a business and to be authentic in that story than having ambassadors within your community living that mission and purpose out. Let me give you an example. When we were running events in person, and I've told the story a few times, but I love it. I remember getting a call from one of our hosts in Hong Kong, video call, saying like, check this out. And it was during the Hong Kong riot, so the streets were bare, and there was this like one small bar on the side of the street, and it was packed. There was like 30, 40 people even stood watching the street through the window. And I cannot describe how loud and like just incredible it was. But inside was a Finimize event with someone from Bloomberg giving a presentation on the macro economy. Now that, if you've worked in finance your whole life and you see that level of someone volunteering their time and creating something that is really, really powerful in another country, that's the kind of thing where, you're going to start making talent, inspired by the job that they're going to be doing on a daily basis. But I think even beyond that in our daily work, like constantly getting those affirmations from your community, like it's really important you do almost internal PR, reminding people of like, look, it's not just us on this mission. There's a million people out there that all believe in what we're doing here and believe in the work that you're doing. Can be so powerful to unlock that creativity and unlock, the stickiness of your staff, but ultimately to drive ROI, attract really, really top talent to come and work on a mission that is meaningful in the world.
Cool. And the very direct return of that is that you source 10 to 20% of your talent in your community, something like that.
Yeah. I remember we hired one of our first big hires as a really small team. We hired Andrew. Shout out to Andrew. He's one of the most amazing people I've ever worked with. He was the managing editor at Bloomberg and was just a Finimize user. And he came in as part of this product feedback process I was talking about. Came in with one of those. We started chatting. He was like, "Yeah, it's really cool what you're doing," and he ended up joining the team. Like, what an amazing hire! And that sort of serendipity continues to happen.
That's brilliant. That's great. Time's already up. We can save a few seconds to talk about the latest business value, which is S for success. But I think it's fair to say that your community is really part of your business. People will come for content and a community when they subscribe to Finimize. So this is probably where success meets community at Finimize. We don't have to talk more about that, but thank you so much for your time. It was lovely having you on the show. I hear that sometimes your CEO drops an email saying he's going to shout beers at people. I'll be there and look forward to the next drinks with the Finimize team.
Yeah,
and
I'll see you in Paris.
Thanks for being here, Max.
No worries. Thank you.
Speak to you soon. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.